The ranch gate creaked on its own. No wind, no footsteps, just that dry, slow sound, as if an invisible someone were asking permission to enter. Marcus dropped the shotgun to the ground when he heard the weak voice from the other side. "Sir, do you have a little food?" The problem wasn't the request. The problem was that he had heard that same voice before. And the person who used it was no longer alive. Marcus was known throughout the region as a closed-off man. Owner of an isolated ranch in the countryside, he had lived alone since his wife's death nearly 10 years earlier. Few dared knock on his gate after sunset. The dirt road leading to his house was long, bordered by tall brush and strange stories. People said things happened there that couldn't be explained. Animals vanished. Lights appeared in the middle of the night. And voices, always voices. That night, the sky was heavy. No stars. And hunger had found its way to the wrong house. Marcus took a few seconds before taking his first step toward the gate. It wasn't ordinary fear. It was that strange, ancient feeling, as if his body recognized a danger his mind couldn't yet explain. The lantern in his hand trembled, casting twisted shadows on the wooden fence. "Who's there?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. The woman didn't lift her face right away. She clutched the boy to her chest with almost desperate strength, as if afraid he might simply disappear. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded too tired for someone alive. "Sorry to bother you this late, but hunger doesn't wait for dawn." Marcus felt a knot form in his throat. That phrase echoed inside him the wrong way. Too familiar. He stepped closer. The lantern light revealed the scene better. The woman was young, but her face bore deep marks of suffering. Sunken eyes, pale skin almost ashen. Her clothes were clean but old, as if from another time. The boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, stayed still, his face buried in his mother's shoulder. "Is the boy okay?" Marcus asked. She took a while to answer. He's tired," she said, looking away. Marcus lowered the lantern instinctively, trying to illuminate their feet. And in that instant, something made his stomach freeze. The woman's feet seemed to barely touch the ground, almost floating. No marks in the damp earth. No tracks. As if they hadn't walked the road to get there. He blinked, thinking it was fatigue. But the feeling didn't go away. "You can come in," he said, almost in a whisper, opening the gate. The creak of the wood sounded too loud in the night's silence. As the woman passed him, Marcus felt an intense cold, as if the air had been sucked out of the room for a second. The boy didn't move. He didn't breathe visibly. He didn't cry. He made no sound at all. Inside the house, the lantern lit simple but well-kept furniture. Old photographs hung on the wall. Some crooked, others covered by a thin layer of dust. As soon as the visitors crossed the threshold, something changed. Not immediate, but noticeable. The air grew heavy. A distant smell of smoke mixed with the scent of stored food. Marcus closed the door behind them. At the same moment, the old wall clock, stopped for months, gave a dry click, and started running. Tick, 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 but backward. "Strange," he murmured, approaching the clock. "Time runs differently in places like this," the woman said in a low tone. Marcus turned abruptly. "What do you mean?" She just gave a faint smile. A sad smile, the kind that brings no comfort. He led them to the kitchen table. He pulled out a chair for the woman, but she didn't sit. She stood, holding the boy, observing every detail of the house with exaggerated attention. Her eyes scanned the walls, the ceiling, the photographs, and then they stopped on one. An old, slightly yellowed photo showed a younger Marcus beside his wife. In the background, almost out of focus, was a wooden house, in flames. The woman tilted her head slightly. "Nice memory," she said. Marcus's heart raced. "That's not," he began, but stopped. "Not what it seems," she finished. The silence that followed was heavy. The kind of silence that screams. Marcus went to the stove, trying to busy himself. He took bread, cut it, put some leftover broth from lunch in a pot. His hands shook. He felt the woman's gaze on his back. It wasn't accusing. It was expectant. "Have you lived around here long?" he asked, trying to sound normal. "We lived she replied. Another wrong word. Another shiver. When he placed the plate on the table, he noticed something even more disturbing. The boy had shifted position. Now his face was visible. Eyes open. Too black. Without any shine. Marcus stepped back. He's awake. The boy stared at him fixedly. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He hears more than he speaks, the woman said. He's always been like that. The clock beat harder. Tick, tick, tick. Marcus tried to swallow, but his throat was too dry. Eat, he said, pointing to the table. The woman finally sat. She placed the boy beside her. But neither touched the food. They just watched the steam rise slowly from the plate. Hunger hurts, she said. Especially when someone closes the door. Marcus felt the ground give way beneath his feet. Do you know me? He asked. She lifted her eyes. For the first time, there was something different in them. Not sadness. Not tiredness. Something deeper. Do you really think some nights are forgotten? At that moment, a gust of wind swept through the house, extinguishing the lantern. The kitchen plunged into total darkness. Marcus heard the sound of wood crackling. Like fire. When the lantern relit on its own, the woman and boy were still there. But now, their shadows didn't appear on the floor. And Marcus knew, with a certainty that chilled his soul, that visit hadn't come just for food. The silence that filled the kitchen was so thick it seemed to have weight. Marcus struggled to breathe. The lantern, now lit again, cast a weak light that flickered, as if about to go out at any moment. The woman remained seated, hands folded in her lap. The boy beside her stared at Marcus without blinking. Those black eyes didn't reflect the light. They were deep, empty, like endless wells. Eat, please, Marcus repeated, his voice failing. She tilted her head, watching the steaming plate. Curious, she said. The food is hot, but the house is cold. Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. The temperature had dropped suddenly. The air was icy, damp, like a winter dawn, even though it was summer. His breath came out in small white clouds. He tried to convince himself he was just tired. Prolonged solitude did things to the mind. But then the wall clock struck again. Tick, 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 always backward. This clock was broken, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. For months. Some things only work when they need to, the woman replied, without taking her eyes off the plate. The boy moved for the first time. Slowly, he turned his face toward the photograph on the wall. The same one showing the old house in flames. His lips moved. It was here, he murmured. Marcus felt his heart nearly stop. What did you say, boy? The boy pointed with a thin, pale finger. It was here that you stood still, watching. The world seemed to spin. Marcus grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. A bitter taste filled his mouth. That's not true, he said. I tried to help. The woman let out a soft sigh. Not anger. Disappointment. You tried, she repeated, as if tasting the word. Sometimes trying isn't enough. The house walls cracked. A dry sound, like burning wood. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, he felt the kitchen had shrunk. Tighter, as if the past were closing in. That night, Marcus began, his voice choked. It was dark. The fire spread fast. I heard screams, yes, but I thought someone had already helped. You heard a woman asking for help, the boy interrupted in a strange, too adult tone for a child. And a child crying. Marcus dropped into the chair. How do you know that? The boy finally blinked. A single, slow blink. Because it was me. The lantern went out again. This time, it didn't relight on its own. In the dark, Marcus heard footsteps. Not human. Something more dragging. Heavier. A strong smell of smoke filled the room, making his eyes burn. Look, the woman's voice echoed throughout the house. A reddish light began to appear on the walls, like reflections of invisible flames. Marcus saw shadows dancing, distorted, like arms reaching out in desperation. I knocked on your gate, the woman said. 3 times. The sound of wood being struck echoed in the kitchen. Knock, knock, knock. Marcus covered his ears. I was afraid, he shouted. I thought it was bad people. I thought it was too late. It's always too late, for those who decide not to open," she replied. Suddenly, the kitchen vanished. Marcus found himself back in that night. The dark road, the distant fire, the neighbor's house in flames. Him younger, standing still, holding the shotgun, hesitating. And then, closing the gate. "No," Marcus shouted. "I regret it. Every day." The vision dissolved abruptly. The kitchen returned. The lantern relit with a dry click. The woman was standing now. So was the boy. But something had changed. Their skin seemed translucent, like smoke trying to hold shape. "We didn't come to punish," she said. "We came to remind." The house doors began slamming on their own. Drawers opened. Wind howled through the corridors. "The hunger that brought us here isn't of the body," she continued. "It's the hunger for justice. For recognition." Marcus fell to his knees, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. "Forgive me," he begged. "If I could go back." The boy approached. Now his eyes weren't black anymore. There was something different in them. Sadness. Childlike at last. "You can," he said. "Not go back, but choose differently now." The house stopped shaking. Silence returned. But it wasn't oppressive anymore. It was heavy with expectation. The woman slowly pushed the plate of food toward Marcus. "The choice is yours," she said. "There's still hunger in the world. Still closed doors. Still time." Marcus looked at the plate. Then at them. His heart pounded as if he were facing the greatest judgment of his life. Outside, someone knocked on the gate. A real knock. Present. Knock. Marcus raised his head, and knew that choice would define everything. The knock on the gate echoed again. Knock. It didn't come from memory. It didn't come from the past. It was real. Present. Now. Marcus stayed on his knees, body rigid, as if any movement could break something invisible around him. The woman and boy stood before him, motionless, watching with silent attention. There was no hurry in them. It was as if time had slowed just for that moment. Someone is out there," Marcus murmured. The boy tilted his head slightly. "There's always someone," he replied. Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. For the first time in years, it wasn't fear that gripped him. It was shame. A deep, ancient shame he had buried under routines, silences, and excuses. He rose slowly. Each step toward the door felt heavier than the last. The clock had stopped completely. No wind, no cold, just that suffocating expectation. When Marcus grabbed the handle, the woman spoke. "Before you open, you need to understand something." He stopped. "We didn't come to take back what was taken from us," she said. "That can't be returned." The boy stepped forward. Now the lantern light passed partially through his body, as if he were made of mist. "We came to discover who you chose to be after that night." Marcus closed his eyes. Tears fell without him trying to stop them. "I became a coward," he said, voice broken. "I hid behind solitude. I convinced myself it was too late to change." The woman approached. There was no hate on her face. Just a sad serenity. "That's what you believe," she said softly. "But not all judgments come to condemn." She reached out and touched Marcus's chest. In the instant of contact, an intense pain pierced him. But not physical, emotional. He saw scenes he had never allowed himself to revisit. People starving on the road. Requests ignored. Doors closed. Eyes averted. "Every time you said, no," the woman said, "something inside you died a little." Marcus fell to his knees again. "Then take me," he begged. "Punish me. I deserve it." The boy knelt before him. "No," he said firmly. "That would be too easy." Marcus looked up, confused. "The punishment isn't death," the boy continued. "It's living knowing, and still choosing to do good." The house door began creaking slowly, opening on its own. The night was different. Not total darkness. A soft, almost golden light illuminated the road. Outside, a silhouette approached the gate. A thin man, worn clothes, holding an empty bag. "He's not part of us," the woman said. "He didn't come from the past." Marcus's heart raced. "So, this choice is real." "It always was," she replied. Marcus took a deep breath. He rose with difficulty and walked to the door. Each step seemed to lift an ancient weight from his back. When he crossed the threshold, he felt something strange. The air was warm. Alive. Real. He opened the gate. The man outside startled. "Sorry to bother you, sir," he said, lowering his head. "I just wanted to know if—" "Come in," Marcus interrupted firmly. "Please, come in." The words came out before fear could hold them back. The man hesitated, surprised. "Are you sure?" Marcus nodded. "I am." In the instant the man crossed the gate, a different sound echoed behind Marcus. A collective sigh, as if something ancient had finally been released. He turned. The woman and boy were there, but changing. Their forms began dissolving slowly. Not in pain, not in haste, in peace. "Thank you," the woman said, with a true smile for the first time. "For the bread?" Marcus asked, confused. "For the door," she replied. The boy waved lightly. "The hunger brought us here," he said. "But your choice set us free." Marcus tried to approach, but they were already becoming light. Small bright points rising slowly, blending into the house air. "Wait," he shouted. "I never asked your names." The woman's voice echoed softly, already distant. "You never asked." And then, they were gone. The house fell into absolute silence. The hungry man watched everything, frightened. "Are you okay?" he asked. Marcus took a deep breath. For the first time in decades, his chest felt light. "I am," he replied. "Now I am." He led the man to the table. Served food, hot bread, fresh water, not out of obligation, not out of fear, but by choice. When the man finished eating and left, Marcus remained seated, staring at the empty plate before him. In the center of the table, there was something that hadn't been there before. A small, dark mark, as if ashes had touched the wood, and turned into roots. Marcus touched the mark carefully, and smiled, knowing that visit hadn't been the end. It had been the beginning. Dawn arrived slowly, as if the night didn't want to leave completely. Sunlight slipped through the kitchen window cracks, touching the wooden floor where, hours earlier, impossible shadows had danced. Marcus sat at the table, motionless, hands on his knees. He hadn't slept. He didn't need to. The house felt different. Not brighter, but more alive. The wall clock had stopped again. This time, at the exact moment the hungry man crossed the gate. Marcus noticed it with a strange satisfaction. Some things no longer needed to move to prove they existed. He rose slowly and walked to the front door. Opening it, he smelled the earth damp from morning dew. A distant rooster crowed along the road. Everything seemed normal. Too simple, almost banal, compared to what had happened that night. But Marcus knew, nothing was the same. He walked to the gate, touched the old wood carefully. For the first time in years, he felt no fear. No distrust, only responsibility. That same day, early, someone passed by the road. A woman with 2 children, carrying makeshift bags. When she saw Marcus, she hesitated. Looked at the closed gate. At the isolated house. Started to move on. "Hey," Marcus called, voice firm. She stopped, wary. "Are you hungry?" The question seemed to surprise her. She didn't answer right away. Just tightened the hand of the smaller child. "A little," she admitted. Marcus opened the gate without thinking. "Come in. There's hot coffee." The woman widened her eyes. "Are you sure?" Marcus nodded, feeling something warm in his chest. "I am." As they entered, a gentle breeze crossed the yard. Marcus had the impression, brief, almost imperceptible, of hearing a light laugh, distant. Not from the road, from memory. Inside the house, coffee was served. Bread shared. Silences respected. No explanations. No questions. It wasn't necessary. When the woman and children left, Marcus watched until they disappeared around the bend. Something made him look at the floor near the table. The mark was still there. That dark root, delicate, seeming to have grown from the wood. He knelt and touched it again. It was warm, alive. In the days that followed, small things began to happen. The ranch land, once dry in spots, produced better. The well, which used to drop in hot seasons, stayed steady. Missing animals started reappearing. But the greatest miracle was Marcus. He began waking earlier, leaving the gate open during the day. preparing always more food than needed. Not because he expected supernatural visits, but because he understood now that hunger never announces when it will arrive. At night, sometimes he sat on the porch, looking at the road. On some nights, he had the clear sense of not being alone. Not like before, when solitude weighed, but like someone being watched, with care. One early morning, he woke to a knock. Knock. His heart raced for a moment. But no fear, just attention. He rose and opened the door. No one was there. The road was empty. When he went back inside, he noticed something different in the wall photograph. That old one of the fire. The flames were still there, but now, in the background, there was a small figure near the gate. An open shadow, a gesture he didn't remember making back then. Marcus smiled with sadness and acceptance. I learned, he murmured. Years passed. The ranch stopped being known as the strange place. It became called the House of Bread. Travelers knew they'd find shelter there. A hot plate, a listening ear. Marcus grew old, but never closed the gate at nightfall again. On the last night of his life, already weak, lying in bed, he heard the knock again. Knock. He smiled. Come in, he whispered. The door opened without sound. The woman entered first. Young as that night, the boy walked beside her. Now smiling, eyes clear, alive. It's time, she said gently. Marcus felt a deep peace. No fear, no guilt. I left the door open, he said with effort. The boy nodded. And that's why, you were never alone again. When Marcus closed his eyes, the house fell silent. The next morning, they found him serene, with a faint smile on his face. The gate, open. And to this day, they say that whoever passes that road, hungry or with pain in their heart, feels something strange when approaching the ranch. A gentle certainty, that some doors, once opened, never close again. Sometimes, the greatest judgment doesn't come from death. It comes from the second chance it offers us. And not every knock at the door asks for food. Some ask for redemption.